So it's now my privilege to introduce the final session of the morning. I have asked All Stars Project CEO, Gabrielle Kurlander, to connect this morning's conversation about after school to the national conversation about the social crisis in so many cities across America. So let me tell you a little bit more about Gabrielle and her accomplishments as a national after-school leader. Over the past 26 years as president and CEO of the All Stars Project, she has transformed the All Stars from a grassroots all-star volunteer effort into a $10 million organization with a program in 6 cities in the United States and partnerships in Mexico, Japan, and Uganda. As a bold and innovative nonprofit entrepreneur and community organizer, and may I add, actress and award-winning director, may I add, she has enlisted new and powerful allies from corporate CEOs, leading philanthropists, university presidents, and elected officials for the growth of after school. And as that award-winning actor and theater director, she has articulated an important vision for after school as a front line for bringing creativity back into the lives of young people and communities. She's passionate, gutsy, brilliant, and a dear friend and colleague of mine and of all of us in the All Stars. Please welcome to the stage, Gabrielle Kurlander.
Thank you, Gloria. It's very sweet. I haven't even started talking, but I've violated the #1 rules of a speaker, never go after the young people. And so they've set quite a high bar. I was very touched by your comments. Thank you so much for sharing all that with us. Really appreciate that. It's great to be here. I really enjoyed the morning and being here with all of you. I've worked in the after-school arena, like I know many people have here, for over 3 decades now. But I have to say, I don't spend that much time in quite this kind of environment, with colleagues and people who are doing this kind of work in the communities and at the front line and at different organizations. So it's really just a pleasure to be here. I've really enjoyed the experience. I wanted to, just share with you in the few minutes that I have what I think about after-school development and why I think what we're doing is so critically important. And this morning people talked about a number of different, I think, features of after-school development. Working from a position of strength, positive youth development, the development of social and emotional skills and social emotional learning, creating a safe space for young people and giving them a sense of community and giving them love. I believe in love. I think love is tremendously important in our field. And hopefully we won't have too many measurements and studies and research that'll kill all the love. That's kind of a bit of an advocacy of mine. To create imagination for them and to engage them with other adults, to give them exposure, to help them find their voice, to try new performances and give young people space to fail. So I think that all of these things are, and more, are features of what after-school development is. And we introduced it because I think we wanted strategically to literally come up with a term that said to people, this is how this is distinguished from school. This is a different thing from school. It's not the same thing as school. It can support what young people can do in school, can be related to what young people do in school, but it's not the same thing. So part of what we're doing with this conference, and I just got back from a trip to Chicago and to the San Francisco Bay Area. We have a dynamic after-school working group in Chicago where people, from communities and from organizations like all of you are with, are there coming together, and they're working on what do they want after school to be and how are they going to address some of the issues that Chicago is facing. So I think we're working to take after school in a direction and to create a radically new approach and vision for what after school is. And I think this is important because when you look at some of the headlines and you look at now what's being discussed, that the majority, maybe you read this, the majority of kids in the public schools are now living in poverty. Majority of children in public schools are living in poverty. So I think that what that says to us is that we're no longer in a position where we can just fix this problem. That fixing the problem, solving the achievement gap in kind of this, I don't know, narrow short-term way is just not what's called for. We have a crisis in this country of enormous proportion, and I don't think our response to it has been sufficient. And I think the discussion this morning about what it would take to do a Marshall Plan in this arena, I think that's the kind of thing we need. And as was said, we should get people like all of you and people in the room who know what's going on in the communities, and young people also, together in a group to say this is the kind of thing that we need in this arena. I mean, I was really struck. I learned things listening to the young people talk today. I really did. I saw things in ways that I hadn't seen them before. It gave me like a new perspective. I thought the young man, I don't think he's here anymore, but who spoke about some of the kids in the community being out in the street, if they were going to be out, getting involved in different kinds of things, he described them as helpless. Now, it really struck me, right? You read all the articles and you see what's being talked about of young people. That kind of thing is not really ever talked about. It's like they're not seen in that way, that the conditions of their lives, that poverty and despair and the neglect that we've created in these communities, that's an expression of helplessness. No, they're seen a whole other sort of ways, as if it's I don't know, something much more aggressive and much more, a choice, something very much more negative than that. So I think that we need to see what's going on in new ways and bring some new voices to the table. I think that the reason after school is so important is in the last decades, our school reform efforts, I think we have to face the fact that they are not succeeding by and large. They are not working. There are billions of dollars have been put into school reform. Let's do smaller schools. Let's do teacher training. Let's, one after another after another. And I think, yes, I think that we should get more teacher training. I think teachers aren't given the support that they need. I think that probably a smaller school environment is a good thing, but I think in and of themselves, these solutions are not solving the problem because we're not taking a broad view on what's going on in these young people's lives and what kind of thing needs to be done here in our country. In fact, I don't think that it's our kids who are failing in our schools. I think that we're failing them. And until we come to terms with the fact that that's what's going on, and stand up and say, hey, we're the adults, we're the ones that are responsible, we need to take responsibility for this, I just don't think we're going to make much progress. So I think that the good news is that I think many people now, as I talk to them and travel around the country, and maybe you are engaging with this, talking to people too, many people are now questioning, I think, some of the assumptions that have been made about how this work is being done. People in after school, people in education, people in human development, people in learning. I think that there are new things like social emotional learning that are coming into both after school and the schools that are very productive and can help young people to move forward. But I think that there are some cutting-edge changes happening and shifts happening that are happening on a broad scale. And the All-Stars Project has been part of this for about 36 years now. We've worked on pioneering a new approach. And really, in basic terms, we believe in development. We believe in development as this ongoing capacity of human beings to create and recreate their lives and lead that to greater fulfillment and greater happiness and greater achievement. And I think the young people when you were talking up here, part of what I saw is I thought you're talking about kind of your difficulty with or how you're struggling how do you move to a next level of your own development? How do you take everything that you have and use it better, employ it better, talk to the people who you might meet, and how do you do that? Because now what was required before when you were in high school isn't the same thing that's required now. You know, so it's like when you're an athlete. When you move to the next level of athletics, you have to do a new set of things in order to achieve at that level, or you won't achieve there. And I think that, you know, development can be hard. It can be very, very difficult. And I also think it's something that we often don't do until we have to. You know, we have to grow, and if we're giving environments to grow, we can grow. So I think that modern education has largely not focused on development and growth. It's largely focused on knowledge acquisition. It hasn't focused on creativity. And the schools or practices, in my opinion, like teaching to the test and the achievement gap, which has been persistent, you know, have been the result of these kinds of practices. So I think people are crying out now all around the country that this is failing the kids, and that we have experts now in education, in economics, and in medicine and psychology who are searching for a new methodology and a new way of doing this kind of work. And I think that we're the ones in after school, and the kinds of things that you were talking about earlier up here, that you are experts in, clearly. You know, you talk about it, you know, as just, you don't need to be studying a book. You know this, you live it, you breathe it. I think that we are offering the solutions that are needed today. Our co-founder, Dr. Fred Newman, he put it this way. He said, quote, "We're not involved in knowledge production. We are engaging development. We're offering development as a supplement to the education process. The education process by itself is not a complete process. Development is a different kind of phenomenon, and it is our hard claim that only with this completion are young people going to grow off of education. This is a whole aspect that's not being taken care of in our schools." So that's why I think it's important that we be dedicating after-school time to reinitiating development and human growth, and in particular for young people growing up in our most impoverished communities. I do think that if you look at a vision for after-school and, you know, what a Marshall Plan would look like, you could have young people from all communities in this country working on those kinds of issues together, coming together and building bridges so as to support the development of all young people, including young people in poor communities, and everybody would grow from that. We are working with the Center on Research and Evaluation at Southern Methodist University, because in addition to doing the programs and practices that we do, and I know so many people in this room are doing, we want to create some new evaluative tools for measuring this. Because one of the things that we see is that when go to funders and they say, well, how do you measure success? And what's the evaluation? That the evaluative tools and the ways that they measure success are not in line with the things that we're actually doing. That they want us to show success based on knowledge production, based on test scores, based on graduation rates. And that's actually not the field that we're working on. That's a related field, and I think it will help those things, but it's not what we're doing specifically. So we're really working hard. It's going to take a few years, I think, and we're also we're doing a focus group with young people themselves, so they can say to us, hey, this is what I feel like I'm getting. These are the features of what I feel like a good after-school program is. This is the features of what's made a difference in my life. And we are hoping that with SMU, we can create a new evaluative tool that can be used by people in our field. And so when we're going to funders, we can say to them, hey, you know, here's the evaluation that we applied to our programs, and here's what it said. And that's not only to show I think the outcomes, but also the inputs. So we need to assert the things that are important in this arena, and I think sometimes we've gotten off base in that. So one of the things that I like to talk about sometimes is the issue of happiness. You know, I have a colleague in law enforcement, and he told me he never arrested a happy young person. But I think happiness as an outcome is underrated, is undervalued. I think there are a lot of funders, if you went to them and you said, I'm working on young people from, you know, our most disadvantaged communities, helping them to be happier, they wouldn't fund you. I think there's something wrong about that. I really do. I think parents from all communities want their kids to be happy, and I think that one of the things that's a problem in our country is that, you know, the trauma, as many people have written about, that go on for our young people in the communities, it has a huge impact on how you feel about yourself, about the world, and I think we need to work on that. We need to go to funders and say, you need to be investing in that. So just to wrap up, I think that we in after school, I think that we can be a game changer in terms of the crisis that's going on in the country here. I think that that's what after school development offers. I think that that's what we're offering, and I think it's time, we should shout it from the rooftops. And as I said, came here last year and said I thought that we're kind of in a fight around these issues, and I still think that. I think that there's a fight to be had, because I think that those of us who have walked the walk and been in the neighborhoods, or those of us who are the young people, and I thought what Dr. Falani was saying to you is so important, because part of how I learned, you know, myself to fundraise or to come and speak to people or do different things is because when I came to realize that it wasn't just for me, you know, that I was doing something for other people. And so I think that we're doing this for millions of people in our country, and I think we need to be much more bold and outspoken about both what's going wrong, but also about, you know, what's going right. And I know so many people in this room are working on what's going right, and so it's really just my privilege to be here with you. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Open up for questions. I see a hand already. And questions, comments, and opportunity for more conversation. So, yes, all the way in the back.
When introducing myself, I am a part of a lot of organizations, so I don't always mention them until it's needed. I am a board member for the Newark Circle of Sisters, which is an organization, not an event, but I am also a certified trauma trainer through Equal Justice USA. And being that the conversation led to trauma, listening to all of the youth talk about their traumatized issues, we're traumatized as a nation. Equal Justice has a new funding. It's called VOCA funding. I will leave this here at All Stars, and if anybody would like to get the link, where they are giving out funding for organizations that are collaborating with each other to help traumatize-induced neighborhoods. So knowledge is power. If we don't know, we can't grow. But once we know, we have to take advantage of what's out there so that they can keep putting money out there for us to do what it is that we do. So I just wanted to let you guys know that, and I'll have the information if anybody is interested in getting more funding for their programs.
Thanks, Tamika. Yes.
Good morning. Thank you so much for all that you have done and your words this morning. I am a former teacher at Arts High School, the first performing arts school in the nation, and I also have founded Quay Institute of the Arts, which is a performing arts after-school program. And my question to you is, I love everything that you said, but mainly about happiness. If there are any teachers in the classroom, we all know that by May or June, happiness is kind of hard to find in the school. I'm wondering what evaluative processes or things that we can put into place, not only for young people, which of course is extremely important, but also for teachers and those educators that young people spend a majority of their time around. As was mentioned before, a lot of our students spend more time with those teachers that they trust and they love than they do with some of their family members. What can we do to cultivate more happiness and more joy in the school, knowing that a lot of our teachers are a part of systems that are failing our students, which is what, by the end of the year, is burning out a lot of our good teachers, which is pushing out a lot of our good teachers. What can we do as after-school developers to help that?
One thing that we've experienced, we've done a number of things with teachers, in this area. So one thing we've done is create opportunities for teachers to learn more about the young people's lives in a more holistic way. And so after school is something you can do that. So we've had a lot of different experiences where teachers will come, like you give them a chance to be part of the after school program or included in the after school environment, and all of a sudden they see the same kids in school who are not doing well in school, or they're relating to a certain kind of way in school, and now that young person is achieving, as was talked about this morning, and being related to positively, and is performing in new ways outside of school. And then the young person can also see the teacher in different kinds of ways, because if you have the teacher involved in the creating of an after-school program, or just, doing there, or even giving a performance themselves, since you said you were in the arts. So it just humanizes people and kind of changes the environment that they're related in. And so that's a kind of way that I think after school can be of more support to teachers, both in helping them to know what's going on in young people's lives, like the young people we're talking today, but also helping them to step outside of kind of the box that sometimes they get put in.
Bonnie Granatier. I'm affiliated with Rutgers School of Public Affairs and Administration. You probably by now have heard about Governor Christie's proposal for school funding, changes in school funding to basically massively disenfranchise our most at-risk youth. But I don't think that our legislature will allow this, but I think it's going to spur a conversation on a state level about education. And just kind of dovetailing off of your response about schools, I wonder if there's a way for the after-school community to get a seat at this table about these conversations, that if there is going to be a change in our funding formulas for schools, would there be a way to create a more holistic development model for our children? Because I think we all know that learning and development doesn't end at 3 p.m. So I don't know whether Gloria or your working group could somehow get in touch with our legislators, our local legislators, and ask if there's an opportunity for us to have these conversations on a state level, and maybe kind of share some of that funding. So, I'm sorry to make more work for you.
No, she just went right to my, I'm going to say this and then I'll respond, right to my cynicism right over here on the right-hand side underneath whatever this is. Not my gallbladder, I had it taken out, but whatever. Okay, said that, Bonnie. I mean, quite honestly, I don't want us to focus on that. I'm going to tell you, I think we need to build this after-school movement. I think we need to build it. I think we need to build it in such a way, because I think one of the issues we are grappling with right now, first of all, I mean, I highly doubt it's going to pass, but okay. I mean, really. And we have some, people in the room. But I think we want to expend our energies to really galvanize the after-school movement. There's a tremendous moment, there's a tremendous opportunity for people to really come together strongly. I think if we can do that in numbers, in collective energy and focus, then we can have an impact. I frankly don't think we're organized well enough to be at to have that kind of impact right now. And I think I want to spend my energies helping us to be organized in that way. I think it's very important. I mean, that's what I think. I don't know. Other people may think something else.
I think, from a policy point of view, this is just, I'm going to give you some of my opinions. I think the things that have gone on with funding, with extended education, extended school day, this kind of thing, and efforts that have kind of used funding coming down for education to kind of, mush it into after school. And I'm very concerned about that, because I think, I agree with Gloria, I think we need to strengthen more our field, what we do, how we want to do it, because otherwise I think we're very vulnerable to getting kind of sucked into being in service of this other thing, in service of education, in the most narrow sense of that word, in service of what the school is doing. And I think that's really a mistake, a big mistake. Not because, I believe deeply in education, and I think it's incredibly important, but I don't think that that's what's going to help our kids become better learners. I think that's been a real mistake. It's almost like in medicine, where they've come up with now more holistic approaches and things to strengthen people so that when they get sick, they're better off at fighting the disease. But we don't do that in this area. We don't strengthen young people and strengthen all of our abilities as learners, so then we're in the learning environment, we know how to learn. So I think we have to spend more time defining, and it was talked about a little bit this morning, what after school is, because when you look at putting systems together, for example, as was discussed this morning and is being done in a number of cities around the country, I think that there's a lot of differences about what those systems should be. What should a set of quality after-school programs, what should they consist of? I think there are differences. There's controversy about that, about what that should be, and I think that needs to be, I don't think we should squash that, but I think it needs to be brought out more, and there needs to be more debate and dialogue and discussion about what should be offered in these kinds of systems. I think if we got stronger in this way, we'd be in a better position to leverage that from a policy position. I mean, here in Newark, we're pleased to be partnering with Mayor Baraka, and I think he's really a forward-looking mayor, as many of you may be working with him as well, because I think he understands something about what needs to go on in communities, you know. So I think there are some policymakers around the country who are getting it, but I think we have a long way to go in that regard.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Gloria. I really appreciate what you said about happiness. And, you know, and that's one thing that I think for our youth leadership program, I know personally, and then with other organizations, that we are seeing a decline in funding for some of our youth development programs. But we're seeing some successes now recently with looking at funding through the emotional and social development perspective. And one thing is that we were able to bring some funders to our program last summer, and really I just shared heart to heart with them, you know, sharing that love about the successes that we've had and the struggles that we've had, and I made the funders cry. You know, they were funding us a couple $1,000s for the program, and now $20,000 this year because of that social emotional component that they didn't even know was truly a part of our program. So to that point, my question is, how do we, though, two things, how do we really share those best practices about how we are evaluating these programs from that social emotional development perspective? And because, you know, I could count how many hugs I get from the high school students and how many hugs our staff members get for mentoring them and guiding them and, you know, seeing them off to college and then beyond. But how do we share those best practices as our organizations together, growing this movement? And then my second question is really, what are those evaluation tools? I share anecdotal stories with the funders, but we don't have access to a lot of those actual data-driven evaluation tools for social emotional development.
Right. You know, I was just thinking about some of the comments that have been made about Angela Duckworth's on grit, and some of the, I just had an email exchange with her a couple of weeks ago about this, but some of the things that she's pointed out is that she feels like things that she's written about now have been applied in schools, and they're being evaluated in ways that are different than what she intended it to be working on. You know, so that you get to the evaluation point and it actually distorts what you're working on. Right, and then in order to get the money, you have to change what you're doing because the evaluation has said this is what you should be doing, and it's like a vicious cycle, and it hurts our field, and it hurts, as you say, you know, and it hurts what we know is working, right? So we haven't, just for us, other people might know some, we have not found an evaluative tool that we like. And we're lucky enough that we're independently funded and don't get government money. And so we have, the way we have shown our funders, our funders and people now, we're lucky enough, give us millions of dollars, individual people, philanthropists, and but our funders will tell you, business people, very hard-hitting business people, evaluate things. They're very quantitative. They're not pushovers, if you allow me. And they'll say, I see the outcomes. And so part of what we've done is we call it involvement philanthropy. We've worked to bring the funders closer to the young people and, have the young people at different events and hosting and have different kinds of programs that where the young people and the supporters and the funders are working together to create growth together. And actually the funders and the philanthropists and the business people say they grow too. They'll tell you that over and over again. But part of their growth is they are understanding more what the needs are and what's going on in young people's lives. And so they're seeing the outcomes, and they're also seeing young people when they start in a program, and then they're seeing them later on, and they see what that change looks like. And so then what that's done for us is that's allowed those funders to say, hey, I see the outcome. I don't need a study. I can't tell you, I have people literally give us millions of dollars, and that's what they will tell you. In fact, they will say, I want to be careful about what kind of study you do, because they'll say, I have a supporter in Texas who's actually, he's a billionaire. It's really true. And he'll say, I'm very concerned about what kind of outcome and evaluation studies we create, because I'm concerned it's going to distort what you're doing. Because once you start saying, hey, this is the outcomes we want, then you go and you say, those are the kinds of kids I want. I have to have the kids who are going to do that. And they have to do it in this time frame, because if they don't do it in this time frame, it's not going to work for my evaluation, and I'm not going to be able to get the money. So it actually incentivizes you not to work with kids who are having the hardest time, not to do things like we're talked about earlier, kids who are, involved in the criminal justice system and need certain help, as Will was saying earlier in that regard. It incentivizes you to reach a different population. And so that's why we're working with SMU to create a new tool, which we intend to distribute and make available to anybody who wants to use it. But we are working hard to create something that is scientifically valid, that's rigorous, that's objective, but that actually aligns more with these kinds of issues.
You mentioned the word love, and I was taken away. My name is Master Kenneth Khalil Thomas, founder of Generation 2 Ippon Do School of Martial Arts. And what I have found with my students is I make an emotional investment in them. They can feel that love. It makes them more open to come talk to me about whatever it is that's going on in their life, by trying to instill some values such as faith, hope, courage, honesty. It helps them see things in a different light. I communicate to them the things that you see out there, you have a choice. You don't have to do that. So at the beginning of every class, I would ask, well, how was your day? Oh, it was okay. So I said, well, did you know anything at the end of the day that you didn't know at the beginning of the day? Yes, so you learned something. Your feet and your fists ain't gonna take you but so far. But knowledge, you have the opportunity to empower yourself with something that once you've got it, it can never be taken away from you. And because I make this emotional investment, I'm not willing to just say, okay, well, when class is over, I'm done with you. No, they have my phone number. They can call me at any time. To the single parents, no, you don't have to take a day off from work. I'll go to the school because they give the school my information. I love my students. I don't want to see any of them get left by the wayside because of funding. I tell parents, look, if you ain't got the money, don't worry about it. The child is much more important than a couple of dollars. So I would say that if this is the field that you're going to be in, if you're not willing to make an emotional investment, then it's just a business.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Right.
we in the business of saving lives.
Yeah.
You got to go that extra mile. Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Lauren Meehan. I'm the director of the Newark Arts Education Roundtable here in Newark.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I used to sit on the other side of the table in philanthropy, so I wanted to bring some perspective to the conversation about evaluation earlier. So the Newark Arts Education Roundtable, through help from private philanthropy and the National Endowment for the Arts, has worked with stakeholders, including the Y, Marion P. Thomas Charter School, a lot of arts providers, to build a social emotional tool that is actually being piloted currently internally and will be, again, shared with others. With this idea, not that you're measuring for the sake of, like you said, changing your inputs, but really for understanding the growth. So whatever place in a person's life you are receiving them, how do we know that developmentally their life is being bettered in some way? And so I think that there are some important things to think about in terms of quality and in terms of standards around making sure that that work is happening, like separate completely from the conversation about funding or philanthropy. And I think we all need to be really thoughtful, not only in how to use those tools to raise money, but also thinking back to those conversations about policy. I think sometimes that's actually the place where it's harder to convince people. Those are the folks that really want the numbers and the data. As you stated before, philanthropists want to feel good. They want to do good things, right? And so it can be a pitch to them, but I think in terms of thinking about really structuring the world differently and having different policies from the state, from a national level, that's where the evaluation piece is really important, and making sure that it's grounded in the right stakeholders. So for us, making sure that it was actually local folks having that conversation, a variety of programs. So we weren't serving really small programs, we weren't serving just really large programs, we were serving across disciplines, we were serving groups that might not even consider themselves as arts organizations necessarily, but wanting to be really clear that it was about thinking about quality. What do we as a community want to say about the work that we're doing around arts and youth development? But then also making sure that that story can be clear to the people who are really going to affect the system's change.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori. And there's one gentleman, and that's where we're going to wrap.
How y'all doing? My name is Opari Ajman. I work for Basics International. We are an organization. I just wanted to ask a question about community service. And, you know, me, myself, I work with an organization. After I graduated college, I didn't really have a plan. And my ED right now, she's not here because she's traveled to Ghana. But I had the luck, I'll say, to be able to travel to Ghana for 1 year and volunteer and be able to help kids in an after-school program. And when you see the kids here and you see the kids there, it's like the same thing. And in Europe, a lot of the volunteers that come usually come from Germany, come from different European countries, because they have a rule out there: after kids finish high school, they have to take a year off. I believe it's called leap year or skip year. After kids graduate high school, they have to take a year off and travel and volunteer and do something to kind of further discover themselves before they go to college. So a lot of the kids that volunteer and come and help students, come and help, you know, little kids that are living in the same kind of, you know, mirrored situations when you see drug abuse and poverty like you never seen, but it gives you a happiness as one of the students, maybe as one of these students who are going into high school, or going into college rather, to be able to say, I took a year off and I helped some kids, and, you know, it's a different interaction. And I just want to know, and also it helps them to have a great resume, something that's on their resume. So when they do come back to college, or after they finish college and they want to pursue a job, it's like, all right, I went and took time and volunteered. So whether they go there or whether they do community service in here, is there anything that stresses community service or volunteership or anything like that in these after-school programs, so that not only are they having fun, you know, but they also doing something that'll better their resume and better their chances, especially within the minority, you know, communities. We have a little bit of trouble when it comes to our resumes, especially if you got a name like Opari Ajman and not John Adams, you know. So but it does more than the resume and all of that. It does a lot. It does a lot for you as a person, because you're able to look at kids, you know, that maybe grew up in situations similar to yours, but you're not in America. You know, you don't have to deal with the same stresses, but you see that someone else is suffering the same way you suffered. And then there's kids that, you know, still hit me up on Facebook or email me and you know, it's emotional, because they'll be like, yo, man, you changed my life, man, you know, and then I'm just like, all right, make sure you speak English properly, or make sure, you know, there's little things that you still say to them. But I think that's will help fulfill some of the students that go through the after-school programs here, too.
Absolutely. All Stars, our first 13 years, was totally volunteers. We founded it on volunteers for 13 full years. So it is the base, it's the core of what we're doing. Secondly, of all of the All-Stars programs, including right here in Newark, every young person that's involved in any of our programs, it's synonymous with their commitment to give. It's just, that's what it is. We organize it, we structure it, we build it into, because what's important, one of the things, in addition to everything that you said, one of the things, if you really want to help young people understand, which we do, that they are our partners. They are an important partner with the All-Stars. That's not a handout. We're not taking care of it. Volunteers, not a handout. The partnership means you have a responsibility to help create this organization. You have a responsibility to help create the community. Embrace that with us. We'll support you. You don't have to be perfect in doing it. But what it means to be here is you have to be committed to doing that. And I'll tell you something, our young people are here, and they're everywhere the All-Stars is. If we're in the neighborhood, if we're at Barringer, whatever school we're at, our young people are there. And they're growing in the ways that you're saying. And I can't tell you how many young people have also said to me, which is very interesting, because the other part of the volunteers in the All-Stars are the well-to-do people from the broader suburbs of New Jersey. I mean, these are all our volunteers. Numbers of young people have also said, boy, when I realize that that person is also giving to our communities, it reinforces that I could do no less. So that came from them. I didn't even think about it. That came from them. So that's what it means, I feel, to create an organization that's based on collaboration, that's based on collectivity, that's based on that we all contribute to the cure, the success. So, and ask any of our young people in between, whatever, you don't have to take it from me. They'll tell you exactly how they build it and they volunteer. So I thank you for giving that to us today as a younger person also, and having that experience that you've had.
Yeah.
You might want to say something on this, or?
I just wanted to add to what Gloria was saying, that I think there's a tremendous bias against young people from the communities in that they need a program or something, but they don't actually need opportunities to give. And as you say, you know, to be a leader and a builder of it. And so we really are working to help the young people themselves give, both not only to the All-Stars, but to their neighborhoods, to other young people who they're in their neighborhoods with, in school with, like to become leaders who that's what they're working on wherever they go. You're not just developing me for myself so I can get the heck out of wherever I want to get the heck out of, which is, you know, is important, because the people are living in situations they want to get the heck out of. That's legitimate. But I think we have to go further than that and say to young people, hey, you're leading a transformation, not just for yourself, but of these communities. And that's a kind of civic responsibility, right, and engagement. And middle-class kids get that all the time. They get told, you get to be a success and do this, but you should also give to others. And then kids from our communities, they don't get told that they can give to others too. But giving is incredibly, giving nourishes you. If you know you can give, that's a sense of your self-worth. So I think that I just want to say that in support of what Gloria you were talking about.
Thank you. Let's thank Gabrielle Kurlander. We're wrapping up this session. I'm going to walk over here. I have a few people who are coming to make some comments, so don't go anywhere. Thank you, Gabrielle.
Thank you, Gloria. Pleasure.